Good evening, all you wonderful people. Once again, it is Ricky, your host with the Chronicles of a Mysterious Universe. And tonight I will be bringing on Josh. Yeah, we're going to talk about aliens.
Hey.
How's it going,
Oh,
man?
hey, I was leaning a little close trying to read that. How is it going?
Yeah, it's going. All right, so let's dive on into our talk about, aliens in general, but grays being, like we said, the more popular or common of the different types of species, apparently, of the aliens.
There's only like 300 million movies made of them, like that's like I mean, what the movie Signs, freaking the one you showed the preview of last week. I mean, there's tons and tons. I mean, E.T. for God's sakes is a well-known one. I mean,
Yeah, you got
um,
communion, fire in the sky, and most of the time they're portrayed as bad or you know not very good beings.
yeah, like
Why is that?
it's weird depending on how you like which information you look into. You get reports of like good things, reports of bad things. Um, I think there's like multiple different types of grays, or two main, but multiple types. Like in a lot of cultures, a lot of people believe these are what is known as the Watchers or whatever. It's referred to in the Bible. It's referred to in all kinds of stuff. It's like there's like part the ones that are known as Watchers, I guess, are like considered to be robots, like they're cloned versions of like the bigger grays. Um,
Yeah,
what they're watching for is unbeknownst, but I think it has to do like if you, I mean, it does talk about it quite heavily in the Lob one, but it's like the evolution of a species on a third density planet. Like essentially we're again they're watching us try to evolve like gardeners. I guess. I don't know.
yeah. There's lots
Personally,
of interpretations out there for sure.
personally, I believe in the more bad, the more negative side of that. Like, I don't know, man. It's again, I've every time I can't even watch those movies without like, for God's sakes, you showed the one preview, and I go to the mailbox, and I get spooked by my own shadow, man. Like, what is going on? It's one of my biggest fears, actually. And
I mean,
I actually,
they're scary. They're creepy. I mean,
yeah, it's because like when I was a kid, I have to this day I have never been able to determine whether this was a dream or whether it happened or not. But like I have this experience that was so profound that like I was on like a ship being chased through these weird little like passageways by yes, one of those creepy figures there. And again, like it wasn't until like last year I think I was talking mentioning it. I was playing video games with my brother and I started talking about something and he mentioned like part of that memory and I was like, how could you have known that, dude? Like he mentioned something like I've never talked to anybody about. He's like, that like the weird light filling the room and stuff like that. Like I've never said
mhm.
that to anybody. I don't know how he could have known that. So I was like, apparently, that kind of was like confirmation to me. But
Something
like
must have happened. Yeah.
again, I'm not gonna go around telling people that I was abducted by aliens because people won't believe you. But I
I would.
mean, people, yeah, I know, normal people wouldn't. But I'm not saying we're not normal. Anyway,
Normal. Yeah.
normal, quote unquote. It's actually like I don't know. It's hard for me to actually say that. My anxiety is kicking in pretty heavily. That's why I started like fumbling all over myself here. But the fact is, I mean, I firmly believe that if I firmly believe the possibility of these beings exist, then that very well could have happened. Um,
Very
it's hard to
possibly.
say.
And they say they can alter your memory so you don't remember, but you can have maybe dreams or some sort of suppressed memory.
Right.
Who knows?
Um, yeah, I mean, like they talk about that technology in the like the Men in Black movie. It's a kind of a joke movie, but there's actually a lot of solid things that are like talked about in the conspiracy community and that stuff. Like it's stuff like that that's put out there specifically to let you know this kind of stuff exists, but they
Hmm.
fictionalize it. So that's another way. The reason why they fictionalize it is so like say somebody were to come out with, hey, I seen this and this and this, they'll be like, oh, you got that from that movie. So then it
Hmm.
immediately discredits anybody who's trying to reach out. It's actually pretty intelligent.
Yeah. I mean, they try to normalize it more or less too, where you're just like numb to it, like, oh, okay, saw an alien, whatever.
Right. Like I think it's foolish to believe that like we're alone in this universe. Like we're just alone, just a floating rock in the middle of a infinite infinite expanse, and we're the only things out here, man. There's just no way.
There's no way. The universe is,
Um,
I mean, and it's still expanding to this day. I mean,
it's ever expanding infinitely. Like it's hard to grasp. Like a lot of people say why. Why ultimately is all of this here? Whether or not, again, if even if there is say no God at all, nothing exists. Why? Why does the universe exist at all? Like how did nothing explode and keep expanding? It doesn't make any sense. Regardless of how anybody wants to explain it, none of it makes sense. So,
I mean, as humans, we can't even comprehend nothing to begin with.
right, like it exactly. Like what? um,
I mean, what
that's
is
one of those
nothing?
things, right? And so try to like a lot of times when I'm in like when I meditate or whatever, I try to think of before. I hit a block every time I try to think of like God. What? Why was God to begin with? You know what I mean? Like if there is a source, if there is God, like why? What was before that? Why? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I always hit a block, and I don't know.
Hmm.
It fascinates me.
Me too.
But again, a lot of the experiences I've had have shown me that there's definitely divine, whatever it is. There's something else out there.
There
Um,
has to be.
I mean, I'll give you another example. I mean, I've been drinking this intuition tea from the Buddha teas or whatever, and like I've been having profound dreams, and why I still haven't been able to lucid dream, but like I'm having like intuition flashes based on stuff that I'm experiencing my day to day, like medical stuff. In fact, I
That's a
needed to go do
start.
this,
That's a
dude.
start.
Like it's important to know like we got a lot more going on inside of our bodies that we don't realize. But on a day to day basis, we're being poisoned not only through the stuff we watch on TV, but through the foods we eat, the processed crap.
Everything, even the
Uh,
air, chemtrails.
right. Yeah, man. I haven't talked about that one in a long time. Um,
Hmm.
that's that was a thing I was deeply into. Like when I was working at that security job before the TSA. Oh, I said too much. Anyway,
You're good.
it's all good.
It's all good.
Um, so I was gonna read some about the Greys. So, like for those that don't know, I don't know how anybody can not know who or what the Greys are, but so the Greys are one of many different types of alien races that have and are still visiting Earth. The Greys probably are the most known alien species because they not only come to Earth and our solar system often, but they abduct people and let them go, leaving many witnesses to attribute to like what they look like, what their agenda is here on Earth. And then when people ask what do aliens look like, that's the first thing that pops into most people's heads.
The big eyes, gray
Yeah,
skin.
the guys, right. It says, according to this, there's two types of grays that visit Earth. The law of one also says the exact same thing. The first seem to be like the leaders and the most intelligent of the two. They're approximately like 5 to 8 feet tall, that seems correct. Large heads, the dark eyes, long skinny fingers, just scary as hell. All right,
Everything creepy. Nightmare fuel.
right. They have a small mouth, small ear holes, and have like apparently two small nostrils. They're hairless, which is also like the creepy part. And they apparently communicate like through telepathy. That's a common theme when you start to talk about people experiencing contact with extraterrestrial beings or whatever you want to call it, angels.
Yeah.
It's telepathy, like you're not using vocalization. Um,
Any being that's considered extraterrestrial or angelic or anything above us uses telepathy. We're the only ones that use verbal communication. Yes.
and oftentimes when I talk about that kind of stuff, people think of it as crazy mumbo jumbo. But when you really boil it down, if you understand how the information was passed down to the Bible and all that stuff. It was passed down through this type of communication, telepathy, like extrasensory perception type of communication. I heard the voice of God in my head in meditation. What do you think that is?
Mm-hmm.
Like people are like, oh no, it's different. It's not. It's the same thing. You know,
It's
you can,
interesting.
you can actually sit down in meditation and think of a question that you really really want to get the answer to, and think about it, focus on it in your meditation. You can get the answer to any problem. That's what a lot of the really famous inventors, Elon Musk even talks about that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
um it's just, man, that stuff is fascinating.
Another popular theory about grays is that they're actually us from the far future, time traveling back in to look what was going on in history.
Right. I had read that one a while back, and the guy we following on TikTok said or was talking about that.
Hmm.
Um, Lazy Ghost Hunter. Uh,
Oh yeah,
that could quite easily be the case too. The possibilities, as you know, are infinite. So yeah,
oh yeah.
in that theory, it's like they apparently destroyed. The Earth got destroyed due to a nuclear holocaust. Essentially what we're on the road to right now. So it's really
Mm.
not that far fetched. But the Earth
Not at
was
all.
destroyed due to a nuclear holocaust. Everybody, the survivors went underground. They essentially became super technologically advanced, and due to the being underground, they, apparently lost their hair. The skin turned messed up colors, but I mean, it's not necessarily that far fetched, but apparently
Or
they developed technology to where they can go back
evolution.
in time. Right.
I mean,
That's
if they could travel between dimensions as it is, raise and lower the frequencies or vibrations at will, what would be so hard about time travel?
it. I think it's our minds that look at it like, this time machine, like you're gonna do that. Like the way they explained it, I would say in the Avengers movie was probably as close to you can get, like because like the idea of going back in time to be able to alter your future is silly, because like that then it literally warps, like the realities are infinite, so you're just
Hmm.
breaking time essentially and creating another, like, whatever you want to call it.
A new timeline. Yeah,
Yes, I find that, that to be the most logical one for me, you know what I mean?
I
I
think it
think
was
that
actually
there's
said better in the Loki series on was it Disney Plus?
man, I haven't watched that one. I need to watch that too.
It goes even further into it, talking about how one little change splits out the timeline into a whole different one. And
Yep.
that's you have the people that try to stop it, or the time patrol or whatever, but their
Oh
literal
yeah.
job is to stop that from happening.
Another good example is the Dragon Ball Z. I didn't even think of that. When Trunks goes back in time and then he splits his timeline. Interesting.
Multiverse, yep. Because when he goes
Oh
back to
yeah.
his time, it's still the same. Nothing changed because it didn't change his time. It just changed the future at that time. Even Back to the Future too. The second one.
Right. Yep. And I think that when they release this type of information again in anime form and that kind of form, they're just telling us that they know the answer, man. I guarantee you this technology exists, because
Oh, it does.
the idea of traveling through space, like it can't be done at light speed. So light speed is irrelevant. What they're doing is it's like warp speed or whatever, like Star Trek. You're essentially warping dimensions, and when you're doing that, you're not only traveling, through space, but you're traveling through time. That's
Yeah.
exactly what, like, the Law of One series talks about heavily, which is why it fascinates me so much, because they describe it in like great detail about how this stuff works.
Hmm.
Um, it says like our idea of space is, it has to be combined. So like when you're traveling through space, you're also traveling through time. It's fascinating to really think about it, man.
I
It's
mean, it's
like
a proven fact. Time
the idea of
dilation.
like, right, when the light is getting to us from these other stars, we're essentially looking backwards in time. It's
Oh yeah.
crazy.
That's theory now that most of the stars we look at aren't even there anymore.
Right. Oh yeah, that's a good point. It could have exploded a long time ago.
Even our sun is 8 light minutes away. If our sun blew up right now, we'll still see it for 8 minutes. That the light just got here.
Oh yeah, we gonna die. It's killing everybody. Uh, I mean, of course, that's only a matter of time. But
Yep.
I have been seeing a lot of that lately. There's a lot of doomsday stuff, man. Or I got to be hit with an asteroid. Every minute. Like, why are they doing that? Why is this stuff being pushed? But
I still think the end of the world will happen in my lifetime.
I do too. I've been thinking that since I was a kid and was having, crazy, prophetic dreams about like the
Yep.
end times, like
All my
all the
life.
time when I was a kid, man.
Hmm.
And it's the problem is like once you start to get indoctrinated by the world, like special abilities like, ESP and stuff like that fall away because everybody in the world around you is like, oh, that's not possible. And, your school essentially turns you into a robot, and like you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly put in situations that you hate being in, like having to go to school with people you hate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it just sucks, man. It makes you essentially you're being made into a factory worker. That is what school does for us.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that is ultimately part of a larger agenda, of course. Um, whether people want to believe that or not, it's if you can't argue the facts that school literally takes all your creativity and wipes it away. You're nothing special, sir.
Well, you can't have your own thoughts. They teach you what they want you to know.
Right, and just so like being a coach at work, one of the things we had to do in the coach class is learn the different types of learning styles. So you cannot do a single curriculum and expect to teach because everybody learns differently. How do you teach an
Mm-hmm.
auditory learner the same way that you teach, a kinesthetic learner, for example? You can't. So like it's really not effective to a lot of kids, and a lot of kids get left out or told they're dumb because they can't pass these standardized tests, for example. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
done
very
got off.
interesting.
I got off topic. Ah! I tend to do that. It's okay.
Oh, that's all good. All right, so let's say the Greys, for example. If I've ever encountered them, I don't remember it, at least physically. I have encountered them astrally, and the ones I encountered were the tall Greys. They were tall as I was, and they were looking for something called the Messiah Sword.
Hmm.
I still don't know what that is.
That's God knows what that could be, man. Like it's again, so like every time I reread the Law of One and read about like our universe, like the way it says, like it is way more complex. Our universe itself is not. There's nothing simple. There's absolutely nothing simple about our universe. Like we live
No.
in like a just even the third dimension has like different. People will be at different levels in the third dimension. For example, like a stepping
Mm-hmm.
stone, like stairways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just I don't know. It's fascinating on that. It's just complicated, man. Like there could be infinite versions of what we're doing right here, right now. For example.
Oh yeah, it's in some other universe, just barely different from this one. I could be wearing a different color shirt, but everything else is the same.
Right. I've been watching freaking Rick and Morty. I don't know if you ever watched that show, man, but like,
Oh
dude,
yeah.
it's probably pretty likely that is the case. And whenever one day I was watching that, and like when Rick was using the portal gun, it made me think of all the depictions of like the Anunnaki, because in all the elder Anunnaki carried a device in their hands, and I'm like, man, what if that, it's a portal gun? Like they're traveling through portals and they're able to do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that actually is something people have looked into in that community as well. So I'm not the only person that's had that thought.
Hmm.
Um,
Very
I'll give you
possibly.
a funny example about the Greys and encountering them. So there's a few times in my life that I've taken, I've smoked DMT,
Mm-hmm.
and so my friend, like he did it one time, and he said, he had a breakthrough experience, which is essentially experiencing death. So this varies, but it's very similar to what people encounter. So it's like, man, it's got to be, you know, it's more than what we're thinking it is. It's more than just a fake psychedelic experience. It's something else. So it
Mm-hmm.
definitely varies based on what you believe, what you're going to experience. Well, anyway, he went through this, this portal essentially, and he said he experienced tons of grays standing around him. And because he told me that, I've never been able to do it again because I'm terrified that that's going to happen to me.
You might have to
And
face that fear, though. I mean,
I mean, ultimately, and shortly after that is when I told you I had that dream where I was being chased down the hallway, and then I turned and mustered up all this like strength and energy. I mean, I haven't really been as scared since, but it's still there. You know what I mean? So obviously, if it's still affecting me, it's still deep, buried in my subconscious. And so that's something I need to deal with. You're correct. I probably could deal with it by doing that, but that's a terrifying thought.
no doubt. I mean, of course, when it comes to grays, in reality, as we know, there's balance. There's good and evil. There's probably good grays and bad grays. I once had a encounter in a dream, if you want to call it the dream, where I saw a spaceship coming towards me, and the energy I got off of it was bad. So I was telling them, if you come any closer, I'm going to defend myself. And then they went away. I think they had
Hmm.
bad intentions. Now, the other ones with the talk rays, I had no fear at all. It was just like talking to you, you know.
Right. And that would be like especially in the astral plane, like it's you can't hide intentions from somebody there because like it's there is no separation. Like that's what they say, like when you go to the like the heaven land, there is no separation. You can read everybody's thoughts, like everybody's intentions are aware. So like you can instantly tell, if somebody has bad intentions or good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I firmly believe that there's many, many different types of these. Probably, way more than two. And there's if they are being used as like biomechanical robots, so to speak, there's probably on the good side being used and on the bad side. They're probably
Yeah.
being used. Maybe they can be controlled and piloted by like robots from afar, and they're being used to like fight back and forth between the negative and positive.
Hmm. I've heard of like AI, mechanical, but
Right.
biological. I've heard that from Dolores Cannon's, work.
I mean, yeah, that again, that could quite easily be the case. There's far too many of these like types of encounters for like with all these different people saying it for it to not be true to me. Like you can wipe off one, two, three stories as blah blah blah, but when you got thousands and thousands of people coming out and saying very similar things,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these people are not they're not gaining monetary, they're not getting any money for all this stuff. They're in fact a lot of times they're opening themselves up to criticism and destroyed reputations. So what benefit is it? You know what I mean? That's the thing about like when scientists are coming out with information. So if it's not accepted in the scientific community, they open themselves up to attack. So when they're
Mm-hmm.
coming out with this information and it's like destroying the reputation, I look at that way more than I would, anything just popping up in the mainstream because
Yeah.
they don't want they want the separation of science and spirituality again, and I'll keep saying it, that the answer is to combine them all. It should be a combined thing. um, but in order to keep us under control, it's kept divided. Religion is this, science is this. You can see
Yeah.
it in our community today. You can see it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like people like trust the science, but don't question what they're telling us about the
Well,
science, which is
they can,
opposite.
they can coexist. Science and
Right.
spirituality can coexist. And in fact, they should. And they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of people don't know. I mean, there's a lot of studies that get done by, scientists that are not tied to universities, because that's what a lot of information comes is stuff that's backed by universities, like in the States, for example. And because their funding comes from the university, they cannot then publish something that goes against what the university wants them to publish, because then they lose all their money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that right there is a conflict of interest. Science is supposed to take you where science takes you.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, I wish they would research this where, a lot more seriously, because like then we can have maybe more, scientific answers. And
Mm-hmm.
what a lot of people don't know is about like extraterrestrials and stuff like that and spirituality is it's very much linked. It
It
sounds
is.
crazy, absolutely sounds crazy, but if you read the Bible from the perspective that we're dealing with extraterrestrials, it makes a whole lot more sense. And
It
again,
does.
those extraterrestrials in the Bible are more than likely, again, the Anunnaki,
Mm.
most definitely the Anunnaki. Um, but I'm sure that they were using or are using these beings to watch over us.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, coming here is going to create chaos. Um,
Yeah.
one of the
And it would.
questions that a lot of people ask about aliens is why don't they just reveal themselves to us? Why don't they do that? And
Mm-hmm.
as you know, there is rules in the spiritual sense. Like there's rules in the universe that must be followed, and the main rule that prevents them from doing it is free will. You cannot violate free will. So like free will is the ultimate principle. It's like according to law of one, it's it's the first distortion. So like that means again you cannot violate free will. It's just like like when God God can't come out and say that he loves somebody, right? Because then it's your free will to decide whether or not he does. You know, it's complicated. Like the show Lucifer said it best. Like there's, you know, the whole thing he wanted God to tell him he loved him, and he couldn't because it's violation of his free will.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know
That's
it.
a pretty good show too.
It is, man. I love that show. Dude, it's not very often I like the way shows end, but that show ended fabulously.
I'm still behind.
I won't tell you the end of that, but it's good. I assure you will like the end. Because I did.
So now we got
Right.
different theories that the Greys are either time travelers from the future and come from Earth, or they come from a distant planet somewhere in a different solar system, or they're biologically created AI machines that are working for somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, all of these things could be 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
Like personally, whenever I've researched the from the future idea, like I think it's plausible, but I also like feel like there's in the conspiracy community, there's always going to be, you know, credible sources, and then there's going to be sources that are put out there to purposely confuse the rest. You know what I mean? So, you know, like the people I follow have covered that story, and it does seem plausible. There's lots of people that back it up. So I'm not going to say it's completely false, but I don't know. I like the idea more that we're dealing with these beings that are, I guess, robots, but or the Watchers, as they call it. They like David Wilcock does a whole long story thing about the Watchers. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering what happened to that dude. To be honest, man, like
He has been
he
pretty
kind
quiet
of,
lately.
dude, he went off the face of the earth. I don't know if that guy's missing or what, but like I haven't been able to find nothing.
I hope not, but he
Uh,
does reveal a lot of truth that they don't want to get out. I mean,
yeah, if you've never watched the documentary Above Majestic, if you really want to know a lot about the world or about the United States and the secret space program, watch that.
mm,
It's really backed by a lot of like hard data, and again, you have to follow the money to figure all this stuff out.
mm-hmm.
Um, of course, it postulates that the world is essentially being controlled by this negative, you know, reptilian force, but
The cabal.
like who are ultimately controlled by their gods or whatever, if you will. The dark side again. There's always going to be dark. There's always going to be light.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this planet is full of crap tons of people. We're like a petri dish. We're like a science experiment on this planet, realistically. And you know that's why you can pretty much look into any religion and anything. You believe it all, man. Accept it all. It's all probably right.
Let's put the pieces together.
Let's see what else this thing says about the Greys here. Oh man, these are messed up pictures. Well, here we go. Let's see what this says. Many people have asked why aliens visit Earth and why they abduct people. Well, there are a few different theories as to why in our solar system the Greys come out of the Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, a binary
Zetas.
star system.
Mm-hmm.
So was that again? Did I say it wrong?
The Zetas. No, you're good. That triggered up my memory. I've heard that before.
Yeah, the binary solar system visible from the southern hemisphere, approximately 38 light years away. The star system consists of two stars, one slightly smaller than our own sun in the Milky Way, and the other about the same mass as our sun. Both are much older than our much older than our own sun, around 8 billion years old and dying, while our sun is in its middle age. Oh, the sun's in middle age, all right.
I mean, how do they know that?
Right. That's a good point. How do they know that?
They don't.
Right. This is of course speculation, right? We can't possibly know, we can't possibly think in time frames of billions of years when we only exist for 70, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, average, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a theory. We can only measure, you know, we can only go based on what we know.
Yeah.
Again, for all we know, space could not be real at all. Again, that's one of the other theories on the world right now that's becoming way, way, way more popular than I ever thought it would. But
I think, I mean, assuming space is real, it's nothing like what they tell us it is.
right.
I don't think it's a vacuum. That makes no sense.
I mean, again, that's what they say in the law of one is not what we think it is.
I mean, think about it. Jet propulsion, right? in space, if there's no air, what is that force pushing off of? It would just be stuck in one spot. It couldn't move.
You know, that's I don't know. Like it's that's a deep one to think about, man.
Hmm.
Like once you go down the path of questioning everything, that's why I'm not going to accept any one theory. So like to accept blindly any one theory as being absolute fact is, you know, is a hypocrisy statement. Like you can't, you know, down another statement as you've been lied to your whole life, but then accept this one and be like, oh yeah, this is definitely the case. Like
Hmm.
I think you have to keep your mind completely open if you're going to go down this path. Otherwise, you're just stuck in the same bubble you were in.
Yeah.
That's why, again, I'm not going to completely deny the idea, you know, that space isn't real, but I'm here. I'm still going to research it
Hmm.
into
And
space.
we can't get up there to see it. We don't know.
Right.
I mean, don't you
It's
think it's interesting that back in the 70s and 80s, by now we're supposed to have flying cars? Is there a reason why we don't? So we can't get up there.
well, I don't know, man. I personally believe in the theory why we don't have flying cars and stuff like that. So, like, if you think about cars in general and planes, for example, planes, if you look at from the 60s, planes have really not changed very much at all.
No, not at all.
Neither has cars. And if you think about it, you know, flying cars and stuff would free the people. It would be free, just like the idea that Nikola Tesla was putting up, like the free energy. So the idea is to control.
Mhm.
Again, we if we had this stuff, we would no longer be able to be controlled. We'd be free. Like just we would not imagine not having to pay for energy for God's sakes. Like imagine not having to pay for water. Like why do we have to pay for the basic living blocks of life? Like
Something
that's what Nikola
we have to
right.
have it. Then they make you pay for it.
Right. That's what Nikola Tesla was trying to do. And like you can this is verifiable stuff, man. You can look into
Mhm.
his autobiography, which I've read. Like he was literally, you know, trying to give free energy to the world through, you know, and this energy
Mhm.
exists in the ionosphere. Like
Mhm.
that's why I don't buy into the idea that, you know, electric cars are going to be the ones that save us. If they use the technology that we know exists and run it off like the ionosphere, hell yeah, I would go buy one in a second. But otherwise, it's literally just another way of control. You're going to be forced to buy something from somebody, and these companies are going to then make billions and billions of dollars off of us again.
Well, it's
And
weird. Even with electric vehicles, you're even more limited than gasoline.
right,
If your battery goes dead, you're stuck. You can't just pull over and fill up with gas. You got to
exactly,
charge for a
man.
couple of
Like,
hours.
I mean, I do like the idea of not paying for gas, believe me, like I do, but like knowing, you know, reading what I've read about Nikola Tesla and stuff like that, it's I can't get past the fact that it's guaranteed another way of control. Um,
Mhm.
Absolutely without a doubt.
Mhm.
And I was gonna say another example of what is it? The like a good famous example of like the Grays and stuff like that is like the Area 51 crash, the Roswell crash is what I was getting at. But
Roswell. Yeah.
um in the again in the conspiracy community when you talk about Roswell, so like obviously the mainstream has written it off as the weather balloon. It's been proven, right? Debunked, it's the weather balloon, but you have to read into who is debunking this stuff. Like there's so many people that has been like, nah, this definitely happened. Like they had, you know, they collected this craft, and why wouldn't they want to tell us they collected this craft? Because it's national security. So this is advanced technology that they then, you know, reverse engineered and
Hmm.
created all kinds of stuff. So they say that LED lighting came from that. Like, you know, a lot of the stuff we use in our computers today. That's why
A lot of stuff. The microchip. Yeah.
technology is like exploded so quickly is because we've been reverse engineering all this stuff.
Hmm.
Um,
We've had a huge leap in advancements in a short period of time.
right. And I mean, honestly, I believe that again, we have these craft ourselves already.
Mhm.
Um, and I think personally, that's, you know, people laugh at the idea of the whole Space Force thing, but I personally believe that's why it was instituted is a slowly but surely to come out and be like, hey, you know, we got this agency because we have these advanced craft. Like to me, that makes sense. Otherwise, like in our current state of advancement, it does not make sense to have a space force. Like can't even get back to the moon for God's sakes. Like why
So they say.
else? apparently, I guess NASA's planning to go back to the moon now.
What's funny is they say they've lost the technology, but how?
Yeah, that's so there's two main theories that I ascribe to on that. Either they never went, they faked it completely, or they went and were told not to come back. Like
I've heard
it
that they
was one
got
of the other
chased
ones.
away. Yeah.
And then the other, I guess there's three. The other one is that there's literally a breakaway civilization living on the moon. Um, and that's one of the more outlandish ideas that it's hard for me to accept because like that's crazy. But that is one of the things they suggest in that documentary, and it's talking about one of the ways. I don't want to go down this path, but one of the ways they covered it up was that large amount of money that went missing right before certain things happened. If you know what I'm talking about, the
Mm-hmm.
$2.3 trillion that went missing right before 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I said it too much, but all right.
You
But in
guys know
any
what we're talking
case,
about. If you're watching, you know what we're talking about.
yeah, talking about that, and it's crazy how the room that was hid in the Pentagon was the ones the records and all that stuff. For all that, it's pretty fascinating how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, not saying anything, not saying what I do or don't believe on that, but
I'm not gonna say anything, but definitely look into it, and you might be surprised.
yeah, they're it's hard, man. It's really hard, and it puts me in a hypocritical place where I'm at certain places anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless, my friends, that's okay. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because like for me, believing like reading into some of this stuff and seeing the amount of evidence that there is, like there's no doubt to me. That's why like I laugh when people are like, "Oh, that's crazy conspiracy stuff." But have you ever actually looked into this stuff? Have you ever read and listened to some of these testimonies of when people talk about grays, for example, or anything like that? Like, you know, are all these people lying? Like, I don't know.
What do they call it? Mass hysteria or something like that.
Right. Mass hysteria. Let's see what else we got on here about this. Oh yeah. Holy crap. Speaking of the moon thing. All right. They've also is believed that they have thousands of alien human hybrids. Oh, so like one of the other ideas about the Greys abducting people is to create human alien hybrids. They talk
Yeah.
about that in the X Files, and perhaps one of the theories is to like maybe be able to survive extreme events that are coming to the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we know, I believe it or not, it's definitely going to happen. I feel it, man.
It's
Whatever is going to
happening
happen,
now.
it is.
It's in progress.
Um, the idea, a lot of people, so I came across when I was researching this a few years ago. I stopped doing it because I don't like to do the doomsday thing. I prefer just to live. But the number that I've gotten, a number of other people, like it's 2030 ish, man. That is said to be like the next. For one guy said it's going to be like the next ice age is going to happen at that point, um, which would again coincide with a lot of what the other people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said a lot of people are going to go underground,
Mm-hmm.
which again, if you have not looked into the different bases that are underground, you are kidding yourself.
Oh, there's tons of them.
Like watching the show Hunting Hitler, man, blew my mind way more than I could ever have been. Like I had no idea the intricacy of these bases that they were creating back in the
Mm-hmm.
40s, like 30s and 40s. They were building these crazy underground bases,
Mm-hmm.
and think of the stuff that they're building now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and that's another thing. Like the technology we see now is what they let us know is out there, but
Right.
what the technology they have is probably at least a couple hundred years more than what we know of. Like the
Hmm.
stealth, the jet, and all that. The one that can go into space or whatever. When they told us about it, it'd already been out for years before they revealed it actually existed. They won't tell us how far along they actually are.
Right. Man. So speaking of like the whole moon thing, so this is one of the theories that right here. So it says they've also had contact, the Greys, that we're talking about the Greys here. They've also had contact with high government officials in the past and present. So some good, some bad, such as what went down in Roswell at Area 51. I'm not exactly sure what that's. I'm assuming that's the crash where we dissected the creature or whatever happened. But
Mm-hmm.
when we went to the moon, apparently the aliens basically chased us off and told us not to return because they have bases there where they do experiments and use as a jump off place when going, coming and going from Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating that they mention that because that's exactly what they say, in the Sumerian tablets as well, that they use the moon's like lower gravity as a jump point, going there and then refueling and bam, it's not as hard to take off from there because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much gravity on Earth. Um, but yeah, these we're talking like when they're talking about spaceships taking off, we're talking about big giant spaceships, not like the little tiny ones because they're not using the same type of systems, propulsion systems.
Motherships, yeah.
Right. Um,
And they don't use propulsion like we do. That's how they can travel in space.
right. What do they call it? So they spin and use magnets as one of the ways, and then
Some sort of
they
gravity wave or something.
right. Um, where they do experiments. So and then they said they've also been controlling civilizations for centuries by acting as gods. That's fascinating that they say that. Giving out technology and using plain old fear. Some say they even grow humans that can be controlled and place them in high offices to keep us obedient. Um,
Yeah.
so that's one of many.
Uh-oh. Think we lost you, Josh. All right. I think we might have lost Josh. Let's give him a minute. See if he comes back. Technical difficulties. Hey, there you are. Yeah, we lost you for a minute.
Oh,
Welcome back.
oh
Oh,
man,
they don't like what you're saying.
yeah, dude. Siri just popped up out of nowhere on my watch and was like, "What are you saying right now?" What?
I guess I guess Big Brother doesn't like what you're saying right now. They cut you off.
Where was I at? Uh,
Talking about the moon and how to use different types of magnetic stuff to move and things like
oh
that.
yeah,
I can't even remember. They must have zapped my memory that fast.
yeah, man. I got terrible short term memory myself.
They said the
Uh,
aliens got you.
yeah, that's probably true.
So who are
Man,
you? Are you a body snatcher?
it could be,
And then
could
again,
be, man.
share your experience and knowledge with us if you are an alien.
Yeah, man. Honestly, man, I honestly believe that. So, like, again, like the Law of One talks about it. We've talked about it before, talking about the idea of being like a wanderer. Some people call it a star child, star seed. Some people
Starseed.
call it. There's many different names, but it's the idea that you are not actually from here. You're more of an advanced soul that incarnated here to either learn something because like this density is full of like many karmic. You can learn stuff really good, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or to help aid the civilization into trying to reach the next octave of existence before, unless we're going to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I say repeat, they're talking about cycles, like these major cycles. So what a major cycle is like 25,000 years. That's why the Mayan calendar is an example of that. It's said to have ended in 2012,
Right.
but what people don't realize about the Mayan calendar is like when they're referring to the apocalypse, they're referring to a time of great change. That's what apocalypse means. Doesn't necessarily mean that the world is going to end in fire and brimstone, but like the change, like I look at it as like a countdown. Like we reached that point, and now we're in the like transitory phase, I guess. And again, that's another thing they be saying in this book.
Well, it all ties into the starseed thing. Like starseeds are here to help the Earth ascend into the next density, and all of those who are on the Earth that are able to ascend with the Earth will go as well.
Right. Like, and again, a lot of people will gawk at that idea, but like the amount of people, like just for example, like that guy you shared with me the other day, the guy that had the NDE, the near death experience, like
Yeah.
that video actually blew my mind. And I was sitting here, like I woken up early, I was frustrated, depressed, and I watched that, and I'm like, man,
Mm-hmm.
it's talking about being kind and loving to yourself because essentially we come from a place of pure love. We're born into this world, and the world starts to make us hate ourselves, and like we need ultimately to love ourselves first, and then the world around us will change. um That's the thing. That's why they say healing. Everything starts with you, realistically.
Hmm.
Gotta
Now, what's
read more.
interesting with the starseed thing, I don't keep coming to that, but I definitely have interest in that because I do believe, or actually, I do know, and I was told that I am a starseed. Now, where I come from exactly, I thought it was the Sirius star system up until it actually is the Pleiades. And then I had that dream that my home in the Syrian star system was destroyed in a war, and I went to the Pleiades as a refugee. And that's why I have two overlapping connections to both of those star systems.
That's interesting that one of the guys I follow talks about the history of the history of our, for example, our Milky Way galaxy. Um, Talks about a war that happened where like a civilization was destroyed, then they became refugees. They even mentioned that again heavily in the Law of One series too,
Hmm.
about a war that destroyed a planet. Then the beings that were there were essentially eventually incarnated here. Like again, I think that's very plausible to me, man.
Hmm.
But who does it? It's Billy Carson talks about it, and I know you don't. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you haven't watched any of the stuff, but like he talks about like an ancient war. They talk about that in the Sumerian tablets too. There's a lot more tablets that are slowly but surely being deciphered, and it creates this insane picture of our entire, essentially our galaxy. And when you think about our galaxy, we look at it like we can see it up there, but you have it. There's a crazy, said to be a crazy amount of planets and stars just in our galaxy alone. This is one galaxy, one like
Out of infinity numbers, yeah.
right. And they're saying, I think they were saying there was like I don't know how many. It's a ridiculous number of Earth-like planets. So there could be tons and tons of planets within habitable zones that civilizations could be thriving at,
Hmm.
and I definitely firmly believe that. Um,
I mean, the numbers are astronomical. There has to be.
right, it has to be astronomical. I think it's infinite, man. The idea, I think, you know, there is an infinite number of things going on, an infinite number of beings in the universe. Uh,
Hmm.
what the heck was I going to say about that? Like, that's why. Oh, yeah, like reincarnation and whatnot. So, uh, man, talking about the Bible and reincarnation, but like a lot of people believe that there's only one. You're living one incarnation, and bam, you're in heaven or hell.
Oh,
Like we
yeah.
talked about that last time. But
Hmm.
somebody asked me the other day, like, where do new souls come from? And I think that the only answer to that is like, I mean, obviously, it comes from the source. Everything has to come from the source. And if
But
you ask, like, the
what
source
if
of the
there?
law one, was that?
What if there are no new souls? They're just coming back again. But every soul that's been created has already been created, and there are no new ones. I mean,
That's true. Yeah, there could be just again, like, or the number we're thinking of is definitely infinite.
yeah.
New souls, like, perhaps is a naive thing. Probably just like I don't know. Because again, they say you're trying to experience, and fix. I don't know, experience yourself, but like you're also trying to fix the karma from previous lifetimes. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know, man. On this ever upward trip,
I mean, people always use the term, he's an old soul. I mean, but I don't know.
it's hard to say what that really means, right? Like, what is an old soul? Um, I think honestly, there's people like I'm gonna take Mother Teresa for example, like a saint, somebody that's a saint. They're probably a more advanced soul coming here to help us out. Again,
Hmm.
that's what they say in a lot of one. I'm gonna keep referring to that infinitely because again, it fascinates me. But that's somebody that's chose to return here even though they could go on. Like somebody like Jesus, for example, would be considered a advanced old soul. And
Or they call them an ascended master is another term they use for them too.
right. Most people again don't really know anything about Jesus other than what the Bible teaches you, and there's so many years that are not talked about in that. Like
Oh
he's
yeah.
said to have studied under all the different mystical traditions around the world, and then that's if you listen to a lot of what he's talking about, like, and read, the Hindu scripts and stuff, you're like, oh yeah, he definitely did that. Like, it makes sense because he's talking about the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Truly is. Now I'm gonna freaking have gray dreams tonight, I'm sure. Oh my goodness.
Maybe good ones. Maybe they make peace with them. Yeah.
I could. Never know, man. Maybe I'll watch Signs tonight. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah. Saw
That
it in
movie
theater.
terrified me, man.
I saw it
Terrified me when I seen it.
in a movie theater.
My God.
Have you ever seen The Fourth Kind?
I did, of course. I watched Sport Kind. I talked about that. Remember, I was talking about the owl story. My
Oh
God.
yeah, that's right. That's a scary movie.
I know they've
Even though it's proven to be a hoax.
debunked,
Yeah.
but
Still,
I
the
mean,
concept is scary.
is it though? Is it a hoax? I don't know. Or
Maybe
maybe
want you
what
to
this
think
thing's
it's a
old.
hoax.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because the stuff going on up in Alaska, like around where that is very close to the CERN base or whatever. So, like, the amount of crazy creatures, if you look into the Alaskan legends, man, that are talked about,
Mm.
it's insane. And it could very well be because they're messing with technology there, like, splitting reality, splitting dimensions. Um,
Yeah.
let's see
Well, it makes you wonder because they're literally trying to recreate the Big Bang. That's got to be something bad you don't want to do.
they they are trying to do that. Like, why? Yeah, that's probably not. It's probably going to destroy us. Like, didn't The Simpsons do that, man? An episode on that where they were trying to like create
Probably.
they created something that ended up creating a black hole. Uh,
Probably.
I feel like it did, man. I don't know.
And they blame a lot of that, the Mandela effects, on CERN's experiments too.
Yeah, like I would say that that's probably the case. So, like, the Mandela effect, it's been the things that are like the number of stuff is growing on that
Yeah.
too, like that people
Every day.
experience differently. So somebody the other day was talking about the Berenstein Bears again. And, like,
Hmm.
I promise you, man, it was definitely the Berenstein, not Stain. And
Well,
that's
the
one of the
most
most.
well-known one is from Star Wars, where he says, where everybody remembers him saying, "Luke, I am your father," but he says something different. Even the actor that did his voice remembers saying that, but if you watch the movie, he doesn't say it. So what's going on with that?
Right. Again, I think that technology is being played with that is messing with our reality. And,
Hmm.
there's probably a lot of technology that's going out that's purposely, putting out negative energy into the world. That's why we have these sudden waves of crazies. And again, because we work at a place where we deal with high levels of people, like, we see it. So it's like in the air. Like, but what does that
Hmm.
mean? What does that mean it's in the air? Uh,
Hmm.
they could be using, I mean, we're well known, they could be using the 5G stuff to do that kind of crap.
That's a
Um,
big theory as well. My sister is big into saying how the 5G is working with the vaccine for coronavirus to create the zombie apocalypse. I mean, who
I
knows?
mean, it could be, man. Like, I think there's I think there's a lot of truth. So if you watch any of the documentaries on 5G about
That
like
is
the way it's
dangerous.
used, it was used like it can be used as a weapon. The military has
Hmm.
technology. And one of the things I was watching a long time ago is that, like, the idea of the push for LED lights in everybody's house, right? You know that you can get them for free through your power company. And with 5G technology, you know, they can actually, you've ever seen the movie Batman, the Dark Knight, when he uses
Oh
the
yeah.
cell phone to completely map the environment, that's
Hmm.
apparently can be done using 5G and the LED lighting. Like, it can
Hmm.
completely map an entire environment, see exactly where you're at all times. Um, and it's a technology that people are, they laugh about it, but
Well, we
it's
know these things right here are listening, and that's a fact.
100%.
And most people on the planet have one of these. And they say even if you turn it off, it's still active. The
Yeah,
only way to completely, truly turn it off is to take the battery out. And now, guess what? All new phones, you can't take them out. They're built in.
exactly.
Makes you wonder why.
Yeah, I was pretty paranoid for a long time. So, like, I got heavy into that stuff. And, like, there's only a select operating system that you can buy that's secure and, like, untrackable. And
Was
it's,
it
it's,
Linux?
it's based on Linux, but it's its own company. I forgot what I was going to buy it a long time ago, but Like Google's operating system is completely,
Oh
wide
yeah.
open. Like they can see everything you're doing. Apple, I'm sure, is
Hmm.
slightly more secure. However, ultimately, they still have the keys to all your locks. Whatever you want to say. Jeez,
They do.
Kid, kids are in there killing each other.
Uh
Flying. So this is. I was trying to read this thing about no ears. What? Oh yeah.
oh.
It was saying like flying saucers haven't changed over time, which could be because they are coming from the same point in the future, visiting us at different times. So maybe that's where that idea, like
They're
the
jumping through
future.
time. Yeah.
I think it was who was it? Linda. You ever heard of Linda Moulton Howe? I think it is. She's
Doesn't ring
a
a bell.
she's a journalist that talks about this kind of stuff. She's famous in the conspiracy community about it, but she's one of the ones that was talking about the from the future idea that they came from here to try to help out, to save their race or save us from making the same mistakes or whatever. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, man, I really would like. I wanted to go to like Area 51 and all this. Remember the storm to Area 51 thing?
Hmm. I
I thought
remember
that
that.
crap was ridiculous, but
Nobody went,
like, of course, nobody's gonna go, man. They're gonna gun you all down in there. Like,
and they would.
100%, they would gun you down.
I mean,
Uh,
let's think about if we had flying cars, we could all get together in this huge, massive group, thousands of us, and go and storm Antarctica or something. They
yeah,
could stop all of
dude,
us.
that's what I would want, man. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, and there's so much going on there, and I think it's what it is under that ice, man, is a plethora of technology. Probably, some of the stuff from the fallen Atlantis and all that crap. Like,
Hmm.
easily, that's what I think. I think there's pyramids buried there. I think
Hmm.
somebody was talking to me about the new Graham Hancock documentary. I need to get on there and watch it, but the I was reading a lot of the comments because that's what I do when I get bored. I read comments on that stuff, and like a lot of people are just, man, they get wild on like, oh, he's such a crackpot and all this stuff, and it's like,
Hmm.
do you really look at the narrative that we've been given and say, man, that's got to be the case? They got to have built these pyramids with pulling these blocks, which just outlandish, man. And again, like, why the pyramid shape altogether? Why? You know, this is what we thought of as
But
architects.
they're so perfectly aligned. Like, for example, each of the three pyramids perfectly aligns with Orion's belt. And how is that possible? And if you look up the
Right,
coordinates for the pyramids, if you put the
right.
coordinates out in numbers, that's the speed of light to the exact decimal.
Yeah, it's wild to actually, and like it's the thing about these people, they're like, oh, they don't have the credentials, but the fact is they've gone to these monuments, they've researched, they've talked to the people, they've looked at the records. Like there's a lot more, than the mainstream scientists looking at this stuff. Like, why do we only accept their version but deny everybody else? And it's because we're taught that, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're taught to only accept from, these authority figures. So we can't,
Mm-hmm.
trust anybody else. And that's because we've been programmed. Like,
That's what it is. We're
we,
literally programmed. Like even back in the day, they called TV shows programming or programs.
it is absolutely programming. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people don't even know how TV works at all. So TV is basically flashing a picture in front of your eyes at a rate that you can't see. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
is. It's literally a picture frame by frame that's being flashed in front of your face. So like that's when you have 4K, that's 4,000 pictures being flashed essentially. 4,000 of the same, you know what I mean?
Pixels.
Yeah.
But you talk about frames per second. Like right now, my
Right.
monitor has 60 frames per second. It's flashing 60 images per second, creating the
Right.
illusion of motion. When
Yep.
actually all you're seeing is pictures moving fast enough to mimic motion with an audio put underneath it.
Like you ever had like a marathon watching TV and like you come to the end of it and you're just like drained, so very drained emotionally and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, dude. Think about
Yeah.
why it's doing that to you. It's literally draining your life force, right?
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Probably.
Uh, that's why I don't watch much TV except for Netflix and junk. As far as cable, I don't watch much of that.
Yeah, I don't watch. I don't want none of the commercials, man. Like the only time I catch that stuff is when I'm in the break room at work, and like people will be watching just transfixed, and I'm like, you understand that they're trying to manipulate you? Everybody gets tired of it, but like, look at the trigger words that they're saying, like on some of these things. I'm like, they're like, oh yeah, you're right. See it, my friends. You'll see it.
I
You
mean,
start to notice.
commercials are everywhere. They call them ads now, but even YouTube, Facebook, anywhere you go that social platforms has ads and commercials.
And some like entire YouTube shows are nothing but ads.
Hmm.
Like my kids will watch like the Ryan's Toys review is a good example. It's quite literally an entire the show is an ad itself. And it's fascinating to watch. I'm like, man, like you guys are literally being and they'll be like, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. No, you need it because
Yeah.
they had it. Like obviously that's been happening since we were kids, but and that goes into like the dark psychology side of everything. Like if you don't know anything about psychology, just understand that the people selling you stuff absolutely know about psychology. There's a good book if you want to know about that called Persuasion.
Hmm.
Read that; it'll explain to you everything you need to know about advertisement. It'll make you sick. Oh man,
Yeah, we
what was
got
that?
Life is Liddy adding some stuff. Got to get the ad-free life, yes, because you're trying to sell those toys to kids because they know the kids will beg.
Sorry, I'm trying to
Yes.
read on this little tiny screen. That's why I'm so close. Oh yes,
Extreme close-up.
it'll help see all
Good point.
the.
Good point there, Life is Liddy.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked a little bit about the Grays tonight. Like a little bit about my
Yeah.
experience from when I was a kid. It's I don't know, man. Like there's got to be something to it. I want to do that, hypnotic regression. Like, I want
I
to go
do
be
too.
hypnotized.
I do too.
I originally started talking to that one guy in our group about that, but he was like, "No, I don't dabble in that. I hypnotize a little bit, but like I want to go to somebody. I don't know. I'm also paranoid about doing it. I need to have somebody with me if I'm going to go get hypnotic
Oh
regression
yeah, of course.
because
You got to record it so we can see what happens.
absolutely I have to record it because like being put in a hypnotic state, that person has complete control over you. They can implant all kinds of stuff into your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, my friends, I'm about out of time here. I got to go save my child from killing each other in there. But
It's been a quick hour for sure. All right. Well, thanks again for being
always
on.
blows
Man.
by.
It does.
Always, sir.
All right. We'll pick up next week on Tuesday and dive into maybe some other species or races of extraterrestrials.
We should talk about the reptilians, probably, man.
That's
Just break it
okay.
out, man. That's one of the weird ones that people always look at you crazy when you talk about. Oh, you believe in the lizard people? Right, man.
Reptilians it is. All right. We'll dive into that next time. All right. Well, you take care, man. We'll see you next
Yes, sir.
time.
You have a great night, man.
You too. See ya. All right. So we're going to wrap up here. That was Josh there getting ready to head out. Another great show tonight. Get some good talking. Introduction to the aliens, extraterrestrials. Next week, we're going to continue on with these reptilians. And we'll see you guys then. For now, if you haven't already, please go ahead and show your support. Hit that subscribe button. Give the video a like. That helps YouTube's algorithm push the videos out so others can see the content as well. Feel free to leave some comments to make it interactive. Until next time, sleep well and don't dream about aliens. All right, have a good night.